Hello, career competitor. This is Steve Meller, as always, here to share with you some powerful conversation and some significant insights into what it means to optimize your career in pursuit of your optimal self. I am excited to be introducing our guest here shortly. But as always, let me draw your attention to careercompetitor.com, where you'll see right at the top of that homepage is a place where you can enter your email and become a part of my monthly subscription, my mid-monthly message, where I am just simply giving you that little nudge in the middle of the month to remember that whatever it was you set out to achieve with all that energy at the outset of the month and whatever those lofty goals may be at the end of the month, that you're not going to lose sight of that journey in between. Become a part of my community today. Head to careercompetitor.com, enter your email, and look forward to my next mid-monthly message. Now, let's get right into the show. Hello there, and welcome into this episode where I am so excited to be welcoming in a friend of mine, Cullen Talley, to the show. And we are going to be getting into all things discomfort on this episode, which is a topic near and dear to both mine and Cullen's heart. But 3 things that you need to be on the lookout for within this discussion. Firstly, why extended periods of commitment have the greatest impact on a competitor's mindset. Secondly, we discuss the importance of a third party to keep you connected and focused on getting the job done. And finally, Cullen provides insight around why we don't dismiss or run away from life's greatest questions. So these 3 things and so much more within this awesome discussion with my friend Cullen Talley on this episode of Career Competitor, and I hope you all enjoy. Okay, our career competitor today is a seasoned entrepreneur, investor, and coach who has built a career off of hard truths, competitive spirit, and a willingness to do the work. As the founder, owner, and head coach of Exit Momentum, our guest leads a business coaching and strategizing service that ensures an organization delivers the one thing that matters most: results. While their work within businesses and boardrooms speaks for itself, our guest's competitive spirit has also seeped into physical pursuits, having completed rigorous feats such as Ironmans over the years too. Having gotten to know our guest well now over the last 2 years today, I'm fortunate to be able to call him a friend and can confidently say that wherever you find yourself on your current career journey, our guest will likely have been in your shoes. I'm very excited to be welcoming in my man to Career Competitor, Cullen Talley. Cullen, how are we doing, brother?
Fantastic. Thank you for that. What a wonderful intro, and what a great voice. I need that. I think I need that recorded, and I want to start using that before I go on stage instead of my voice. That'll be perfect.
That's it. And you don't even need to play it out loud. You don't have to play it out loud. You just listen. You just listen to it. It's going to hype you up. That's it. All the energy you need.
I'll be fired up. Exactly.
Well, speaking of fired up, man, I've been fired up for this. I've been fired up just to have you on the show. It's long overdue. Like I said, I've known you for 2 years now. We've probably talked about this on and off for most of that 2 years. So just delighted to be doing this. You're a coach. I'm a coach. You're competitive. I'm competitive. You know competitors. I am inundated with competitors all the time. Like there's going to be so much energy around the conversation within this episode. But to start with, man, I would love for you just to maybe let us in a little bit into that word competitiveness. When I say, Cullen, what does it mean to you when it comes to being competitive and showing up as a competitor each and every day in the world that you operate in? I'm going to throw that one out for you, and let's see what you throw back at me.
Yeah, awesome. What a fantastic question. What a great frame to start from. So for me, competition goes back to my early days with our connection to swimming, right? So I started out in the pool as a kid and was not very good for a very long time, but loved the sport and eventually gravitated toward middle distance and long distance swimming. And as you know very well, there's a lot of time of competing with your own self and in your own head, staring at that black line on the bottom of the pool. So I think formatively for me, starting at, as a young kid and then moving in and then having some success in that world, competition for me for a lot of times was against the competitor, but there was so much more time spent competing with myself. Did I want to get up and go to 5 o'clock practice in the morning? No. Did I want to do another set? No. Did we want to do it over and over and over again, 6 days a week with, twice a days during the summer and all the things that you're familiar with? From that sport. But for me, it was so formative. And as I look back now, it's given me the ability to stay in the discomfort and the pain for longer than most. So my ability to compete comes down to, still to this day, physically, mentally, emotionally, both in my business and just the things that I do physically as well. I can just stay in discomfort longer than most because I just have had that. So the competition for me is about me competing with my own mind. Once I'm there and I'm in that good spot, then then I'm coming after you. So the competition starts. So when you ask me, how do I think about competition? Competition starts inside of me. And then when I get to that state, then I tend to survey the field. And then it's like, okay, because I can tell when somebody else doesn't have that same level of ability to step into that mindset, which is then my advantage.
Stay in discomfort. I love that straight away. It resonates with me in abundance. And what I would love to just do for folks that maybe need some help with that definition of discomfort. I want to help people out there because I think we throw these terms out so much, man. You see it everywhere you look right now. It's just like, whether it's a trust the process kind of approach or whether it's hey, get comfortable being uncomfortable. But discomfort and being uncomfortable is different for everyone, right? Yeah. And I think what's important here is that we start to establish that tone from the outset of this conversation of between you and me, because I think we see discomfort quite similarly, but I want our listeners to also get into that headspace right away. So when you talk about discomfort, throw out some definition around that for us too. Give us some context around maybe what discomfort means to you.
So discomfort to me means making a choice to take an action, to put in a mindset, to do work that is not necessarily what I want to do, but what I know is necessary or think is necessary. Because sometimes we're going to make some choices and it's not going to work out. So the problem is for most people is they'll do the analysis and they'll think, well, it's not going to work, so I'm not going to do it. Well, how do you know? How do you know? So for me, discomfort is some people say, pain. So to me, it's a step back from that. It's being in an uncomfortable state. Physically, mentally, being somewhere where I don't fully understand, being somewhere where I'm physically challenged, being somewhere where my spirituality, mindset and connection is challenged. All of those areas of life it can happen in. So for me, discomfort, if you think on a scale from 1 to 10, I'm saying, can you sit in a 4 or a 5 or even a 6? I'm not talking about a 9 or a 10. If you think about pain on a 1 to 10 scale, and can you sit there for an extended period of time? Right. And there's lots of ways to do that. People are doing it in cold plunges. People are doing it in workouts. People are doing it in fast. People are doing it in long retreats. People are doing it in business, learning how to do marketing, whatever that is. But sitting in this place that is like, hey, I'm not an expert at this. I've got to learn something. I actually don't like this, but this serves my own personal expansion as far as my mindset, my skill sets, and my ability to create something that I want more. Let me say this again, to create something I want more than dealing with the discomfort, not being uncomfortable at that point in time.
Right. And knowing what's necessary, even if you don't want to do it. But then that's a great place to start. But then to actually introduce the scale too. This is huge because we live in this world of we want the quick return, right? We want the quick return. We don't necessarily want to sit in all these areas of gray. It's like, listen, if you can't tell me I'm going to win on the front end, why would I even begin? And if you're not going to tell me I'm not going to get this instant gratification, why would I even start? And so there's so much of that mind in the world, and I'm going to get to the people that you work with here pretty soon. Just as a great transition, but at the same time, just to stick with you for a moment. When was it in your life that you were able to maybe find that perspective that discomfort is in fact part of a scale, that it's not this like either you are or you're not in discomfort. That there's this element of a scale, because I dealt with it with athletes over the years, and they would either tell me it was wonderful, it was terrible, and I was like, well, there's a scale, people. Like it can't be either or. So talk to me a little bit about how you were able to eventually see that perspective over time.
Yeah, and there's so many coaches and mentors I can think about, but I immediately flashed to some of the work that I did as an endurance athlete, kind of middle school, high school age, where it was beyond just going and hanging out. There was something I was going after. And so I remember, wound up being a state champion in the 200, 400 free here in Louisiana when I was 14. And I remember those races really, really well because I remember getting out and being prepared, but also in the middle of the race, looking over and recognizing I'm in the spot that I can be to pull this off. Mm-hmm. Same thing during cross country. And again, it goes back to athletics for me because it just taught a mindset because it was extended. Everything I did was extended period of times. My races weren't 30 seconds long. My races were 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes long. And so it created this ability to do it. And quite frankly, I had to manage that discomfort, right? So Steve, here's the key part, right? I think there's a lot of people today. I see this all the time, both in terms of physical feats, spiritual feats, personal relationship, business. They can flare up to that 9, 10, I'm going to crush it, all that kind of stuff. They cannot sit at a 6 for weeks or days or whatever is required to get the result. And so there's this surge in production, surge in physical fitness, surge in spiritual connection, whatever those areas are, that it doesn't allow it. And so from my standpoint, it was very fortunate that I got attracted to that particular world, and it created a container for me to think about that and then tie that to a result. Tie that to a result in terms of me competing against me getting a better time, me beating other people. And it just built this engine in me that allows, and a mental state in me that allows me to do what I do. And that expanded into other things. You mentioned Ironman, happy to dive down that path, the business stuff I've done. But to me, it was so formative to sit in that container of I've done the work and dealt with that. But now I can sit in a higher level of discomfort for X period of time. And with that, I'm going to get the result for me in terms of what I believe is possible for me, which in these cases was sometimes winning races, sometimes beating a time, whatever the goal was for that particular day. But that was after hundreds and thousands of attempts to do it.
Yep. And it's coming back to the 2024, this overnight success sort of identity that people create for themselves sometimes. And it's the hundreds upon thousands of reps that people don't see those attempts. Yeah. People don't see that level of preparation. And I consider myself, as you're speaking to here regarding to your own personal story, that I consider myself so fortunate to have gone through all of those reps, no matter how much my shoulders and my hips are suffering from it now at this age, at this point in my life. But the mental capacity that I have, like you said, to remain in that 5 and 6 and to be very comfortable knowing that I'm going to be there for a while is such a blessing to have been put on us in those formative years, as you put it. And today, just to transition a little into these folks that you work with today and these businesses that you go in, I'm curious, for those that get to their 30s, their 40s, maybe sometimes their 50s and 60s, having never been able to have those formative years the way in which you and I may have had, where on earth do you even start with that conversation of saying, like, listen, I'm able to see right away that you're just someone who isn't necessarily comfortable being in the uncomfortable, isn't necessarily being comfortable in those 5s and 6s for weeks and months and maybe years at a time. Like, where does that conversation begin? Because if anyone's listening to this thinking like, man, I've never been comfortable in a 5 and a 6, where the heck do I even start, Cullen? Like, I'd love for you to maybe help us out there.
So it's a great question. I don't necessarily know. I in the work that we do, and even in personal mentoring and coaching I've done, I just try to put people in the container for them to just start to discover what it's like. And so if we're going to use this scale, I put them in a container where can they maintain a 3 for whatever. Again, we can pick duration, and that can look like a business target. That can look like a personal target, right? In terms of what they're going after. So I'm looking to build the skill. And then once I've seen the result or not, then I'm going to help them see, looking back, what happened. So I don't think it serves me to show up on day one and say, Steve, hey, I noticed that you don't have a background in endurance thinking and mindset and all this kind of stuff. Let's talk about that. And while, that for me wouldn't be the way that I would go at it, I would create the container for them to make a decision, make a clear commitment so we know what done looks like. And then when they achieved it, recognize what they had done and how that's different than maybe what they had done before, or where they learned some lessons along the way where it didn't happen. So I actually don't care. Like when we did some of the work that we do in the first day, in the first session, we make the leadership teams make all kind of commitments. I expect them to fail miserably in some of the things that they set because they don't understand sizing and what it's going to take, even though they're very smart and very successful. And so that container then 60 days later gives me an ability to look back and say, okay, here's what you see. Can you see this? And then I'm able to tie it to what's going on in the rest of the company, whether that's a dozen employees or hundreds of employees, right? In terms of the size companies that we deal with. And so now I can point back and say, now, can you see how this behavior that you've replicated it throughout your entire organization? Would you like that to change? That is when the light bulb goes on and they're like, okay, I'm willing to step into this. So the work that we do really forces this. In terms of their thinking. There's really an endurance and a discipline that gets created in that, very specifically in the way we set it up intentionally.
Yeah. So there's two things there that are really worth noting. One is for anybody listening who's just like, listen, am I operating at a 4 or 5 or 6? Have I ever done that or anything like that? In a way, I'm hearing you say, it's like, start a little easier than that. Maybe that two or three.
That's the secret, man. I think that's the secret. And obviously you've been an extremely high level coach. You're doing some great work with folks, similar to the ones that we work with in kind of a different frame, which is interesting because we could see each other as competitors, but we don't. It's awesome. We're both very competitive guys. So in any event, I think that is the mistake too many people do. They try to push too hard, too fast. And there's risk. Again, we can go back to any area. Listen, in the physical, that's injury. That's injury. If you go too hard, too fast, right? It's the people that roll into the gym and they're going to go 7 days a week, blah, blah, blah. And then they wind up with an overuse issue. Well, yeah, your soft tissue is not ready for that.
Right.
Your soft tissue and in business is the same thing. I could force people to go faster, but then they're going to be disappointed. They're going to be frustrated. They're going to be angry because they're not going to see incremental progress. And so to me, going to that 2, that 3, that 4, whatever that level of discomfort is, allows you to see incremental progress. And then we can turn the dial up because you can now build on what you've built and you can actually see the actual results you're getting from it.
Yeah, man. Like, an initial discomfort is just simply anything out of the ordinary, right? I mean, that's what it is. Like if the ordinary for you is no discomfort, then something that is out of that ordinary is now become discomfort. So that might even just be 1. It might just be 1 on the scale, but you're out the gates. You're doing something that is forcing you to back to your definition. It's knowing what's necessary, and even if you don't necessarily like doing it, it's just like doing something like that daily for the first time in your life may just be a 1 on the scale, but it's something out of the ordinary. But if you weren't paying attention, something you said there initially to the initial response, it's knowing what done looks like. Knowing what done looks like. Because I didn't miss that. I heard that, and that came out of you. The moment it came out of your mouth, it's like, we're going back to that. Because while you want to sometimes come in easy and soft on the front end and just step into discomfort lightly, you're not doing it with a hopeful mindset. You're not doing it with well, let's just see what goes. Like, no. You have a vision for what done is. You have a vision for the result, whether it be a physical thing, a business thing, spiritual thing. It's kind of irrelevant. It's that notion of saying, listen, however easy I may start on the front end, I am accepting and addressing the fact that there is a destination that we're heading to and we're going to get to. And at some point, like you alluded to, we're going to turn that dial up a little bit. We are going to move out of the 1 and the 2. We are going to get to the 3 and the 4. And some point here, it's going to get into the 6s and the 7s and the 8s for all we know. But we are never going to let go of the done. So let's go right back to that now. Yeah. Where do you start around that conversation? I mean, when someone says this is what result looks like in our mind, are you pushing back against that? Are you just accepting that to begin with? Is it all based on the circumstances? Like, because this is the stuff that I'm here for, man. Because this is the stuff that anyone listening to right now, it's just like, they have it every day. They have an idea, they have a thought, they have a vision. They're going to go for this, and then the next week it's like, I knew I had an idea around something, but I've already forgotten what it was. But you're here saying, like, listen, the moment that thing comes out of your mouth, you've said it now, and I'm going to remind you that you've said it. That's kind of what I'm hearing from you. So I'll throw it over to you.
Yeah. So, Steve, can you imagine that there's any point in time where I accept the first thing that comes out of anybody's mouth as it relates to their targets? So, no, when we set targets or goals, and sometimes in our world they're called rocks, the idea is to get as many things out of your head as possible, right? To get them on paper, to your point, because they are floating around. So where are they stored? then prioritizing those, and then sizing those. One of the biggest things we see is, I told a story not too long ago. I had a client come in and they had 47 number one priorities. Let me say that again. I said, what are the number one priorities for this organization? And they listed 40. I had them do some work on their own. We put it up on the board. There were 47. I was like, well, this is awesome. So, and then I forced them down into 3 to 7, and it was painful. That exercise, just to go from that, what are the ones, if we can't do anything else, and I'm not saying we can't do everything else, but anything else, but it was just forcing them into prioritization. Then it was about, okay, what is we have a specific time frame we're working in, for us, a lot of times 60, 90-day windows, because enough changes in that time period we need to reset. What are we going to have done specifically by then? And so often people overshoot, right? So in my world, they say, I'm going to hire a CFO. I'm like, can you get a CFO hired in 60 days? Well, no, but we have to get it done. Understand that. But what's the step before that? Can we interview 3 candidates? Can we make an offer? Can we get the job posted? Like, what is the thing we're going to do? Hey, we're going to improve sales. By how much? Well, I don't know. I said, do we have a sales process? Well, no, we do, but I was like, where is it? Okay, could we define the sales process and figure out how we're going to measure it in the next 60 days? Because I love that you want to improve sales, but if I don't have a replicatable system that can teach, I don't know how you're going to continue to do it and grow. You're going to hustle your way to a particular result, but you're not going to be able to build on top of that. And so for me, this done part becomes critically important. It's all those incremental steps. I tell a story to teams all the time. We live obviously in South Louisiana. There's a bridge that connects Laplace, Louisiana to Kenner, Louisiana. And there's a train that goes across it. And for probably a year plus, because I drive to the airport a lot, I would watch this bridge being built. And they were pouring these concrete pilings one at a time, putting them down in the mud, one at a time, putting down, and then they were laying track over that. Wasn't pretty, wasn't sexy, wasn't fancy, but week after week, month after month, and all of a sudden there was this bridge that did not exist before. And that is the work that we do. This ability to be uncomfortable for a period of time, do things that nobody's really noticing, and all of a sudden, magically, there's a new bridge from one place to another. And that's the work that we really do in people's minds, and in their business.
Yeah, it's I get to these points in interviews sometimes where I have so many thoughts all at once and I don't even know where to go to next, because this is where our worlds are so similar in the work that we do. It's that, okay, I'm here, this is where I want to get to, and for the life of me, I don't understand why I'm not getting there. And you start to break it down step by step, piece by piece, and you realize that they probably have a lot of the parts, and for whatever reason, no one's ever created the instruction manual. And they're like, I don't even know what piece to put down first, or do I have the right pieces, or whatever it is. And that I love that story. One, because I drive past it too, but secondly, the fact is that the part that you actually mentioned there that is so important is that people aren't even noticing it. Like you said, like most people are just driving up and down that part of 10 and just sort of saying like, hey, I'm just driving to the airport, I'm just going to work, and I'm not even noticing all this work taking place.
Yeah.
And we have to get comfortable knowing that we're going to be doing a whole bunch of work, and that for a long, long, long time, in some cases, no one's even going to notice that we're doing this work. So what's the importance here in terms of keeping people in that right headspace, in terms of reminding them, listen, I know no one's noticing, and I know there's no return yet, but these pieces are the right pieces. Like, again, I'm saying this almost knowing that there's an answer, but I want you to say it here in your own words, because it's so important that people hear this, that this is the time when the work is really at its most important, is when these pieces are going down, when you're not getting the return, and when nobody's noticing the work.
Yeah. So I want to circle back to where you started, which is, these people have likely had some level of success at this point, motivated and to do what they want to do. And so in my world, coaching entrepreneurs and business leaders, of companies, I talk about the fact, and this is not, I forget who coined the phrase, so this is not mine, but there's this like hustle entrepreneur, right? I can hustle my way to $2 million, $3 million, $5 million, whatever the number is, if you're looking at top line revenue per se, and a certain amount of profit. At some point, I don't know how to get past that point, not just because I haven't done it before, but I just can't see all the variables involved. So this is where, to me, if you said earlier, they have to know, well, and basically somebody's got to tell them. This is where having a third party be involved is so critical. Because if you don't, there's a very, 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 very small percentage of people that are going to be motivated enough to do it on their own. And I do know some. One of my best friends is that way. And I'm like, Michael, I don't even know how but he's just a machine. Like sometimes I want to break him open and see if, he's like cyborg, part machine, part human. I am not that way. I need third party pressure to remind me what I committed to, why I'm doing the things I'm doing. I'm a very motivated guy. I've got a lot of achievement, a lot of areas, stuff like that I'm very proud of, but I still need that third party perspective to apply pressure and help me see things differently. And so in that is the key point. And I think one of the key gifts that I am to my clients is reminding them where they were and where they are, because they often forget what progress they've made and the commitments we made and where we're trying to go. So I'm constantly future pacing clients about what they said they wanted to do and also helping remind them, look at all we've accomplished. Like this is not insignificant. The bridge is not complete, but there's a mile of track laid. And I'm telling you, we got another mile to go, and it's going to be amazing to have this done in terms of what the result's going to be. And you're going to be in a different position for your company, against your competitors, all of these things. And you're going to believe yourself. And more importantly, your team is going to believe you, because the biggest problem we see for a lot of people in leadership is they're very surgy in their production, and their employees and partners watch them come in. They read the last book. They heard the last podcast. They're super jacked this week. And everybody, when they leave the room, goes, just wait a week. It'll disappear. Not a problem. He does this every once in a while. We love it. We love him for it, but it's not going to change. So that is what we continue to see is that when we're in there as the third party, reminding those folks of what they said they were going to do and what they've done along the way, that makes all the difference. Which again, if I don't have clarity around what done looks like at each step, there's not an ability to ground that and make sure they're clear about what they have or have not accomplished. If I just allow them to say, we want sales to be better, well, great. What does that mean? And when is it enough? And what was the point at which we checked that box to say, hey, we want to get to a place where we're hitting, $1 million a week on average every week for 4 weeks straight. Whatever the thing is, that's the point that I'm looking for. But if you don't have somebody applying that pressure, giving you perspective, encouragement, and a foot in the ass when necessary, you're not going to get there near the pace. And last thing I should say on that, one of the main reasons we get hired, and my team, my coaches get hired, is our owners, our leaders, our entrepreneurs are saying, I know I can get there. I just believe we can get there faster with your help. And time is more important than waiting on the results. So we're willing to make a significant investment with you in terms of time we spend with you and the cost to work with us to get to the result faster.
Yeah. I'm glad we moved to the third party part of this, because this has been a running theme throughout the podcast this year, and I love when these themes just kind of organically present themselves, in that to get where you want to get to in life, a podcast is never going to be enough. And this is coming from a podcast host. Like, I'm just saying it. I love my listeners. I love the growth of this show, and I love that it can be a catalyst for so many people. But if you've not heard this common theme now over the course of the majority of these episodes this year, hear it again now, is that you don't get to where you truly, where you want to get to, but two, most importantly, where you're capable of getting to. You just get there alone. You don't. Like, there's always going to be an exception to the rule. If you want to follow that person on Instagram and believe all the hype that they throw at you, then go be my guest. It's fine. This is probably the wrong podcast for you. The fact of the matter is that you need a support system. You need a third party. Whether it's a triathlon that you're training for, or whether you're trying to grow your business to a place where it creates generational wealth, it doesn't matter. It's all the same. The third party is such an integral part of this, whether it's Cullen and his team, whether it's me as a coach, whether it's anybody else. I honestly don't care at this point. It's the fact of the matter is you need that support system to get you to where you're truly capable of getting. And this moves me on to something that I did not want to move past or lose this opportunity to discuss with you here, brother, because coaching is this thing now in this world where everybody on LinkedIn is now a coach. Everybody on Instagram is now a coach. It feels like all you have to do is sort of be in a space where someone appreciates your advice, and you can anoint yourself as a coach. And it's a dangerous, dangerous world when that starts to happen, the same way that all these other movements have come and gone over the years. People appoint themselves, self-title themselves with whatever it is. And suddenly now the world is able to see them as the element of influence that might not be the kind of influence that they want on them. So I want to get to the heart of that while we're on this here, man. Like, to you, what are some of the foundational absolute priorities that anyone listening to this that says, yeah, it's time I get that support system? What does a coach need to be for a person for them to actually get to their potential?
So it's an important question and a deep one, and one that has come into particular focus in recent times, especially for the world that I operate in the business world, because of some of the unique challenges that have existed really particularly the last 18 months. So I went bananas on a show that we did on YouTube called The Danger of Bad Business Coaches. So let's go back to your original question, right? What is a coach? So to me, a coach is somebody who can provide perspective, right? They can come up with a plan of development. What is a development plan? I used to have a bias when I was younger that the coach had to be better at the thing than I was in it. And if we look at you, right? So we say, was Steve a great coach for Brooks? Absolutely, right? Mm-hmm. Brooks swims a lot faster than you swim. Is that correct?
That is right.
Okay. That's one of your stories. Same thing for me, right? There are businesses that I coach that are much larger than the ones I invest in or own and so forth. Mm-hmm. So the first piece is I would say you do have to have somebody who has real experience, real perspective, and a plan to help you move through it that you buy into, right? Not just the hype, not just the motivation, like some real results. Like I want to see, like, can this person actually, has this person actually done it at some level? And then do they have the results with other people that I can look at, again, specific, that are measurable, that are clear? One of the reasons we have 70 going to 100 videos on our website from our clients is if somebody wants to find out whether they can get results or not, I don't have to sell them. There's 100 videos. Go listen to them. It's not arguable anymore. It's not arguable. It's not me just talking about what myself and the coaches have done. So from our perspective, it's about proving that that's possible. It's also getting clear what's the right connection for you and that coach. There are coaches that have perspective, that have a plan, that can, but there's just not a fit. There's a values mismatch. There's a approach mismatch. They're either too strong or they're too soft, right? I'm the kind of guy that needs a 2x4 every once in a while upside my head. So I got to have a coach that's able to do that, which is why I use it. I enjoy using it with my clients as well. So I think there's a style component you have to look at also. But to me, the critical component here is, does somebody actually have results in the thing that they're trying to coach you on, first off, for themselves? Any kind of grounded result. Then, can they demonstrate results with clients in a meaningful way that is clear? And are they focused? Because here's the other thing, Steve. I think there's so many people, and this is what I've loved about what you've built. You've gotten so clear the lane you're going to operate in and how you're going to work, and leveraging Shock the World and everything you've done with the workbooks and the mindset and everything else, that you've got your lane. And so many of these people, the people that you talk about on LinkedIn or Facebook or whatever, you can feel the broadness because they don't have a lane. They haven't gotten clear who their right target is. They haven't gotten clear what they actually offer. They just, they want to help. I'm not saying it's bad, but it's one of those things that they're not clear on it. And there's a real risk, because now you're taking advice from a third party that you believe has your best interest at heart and has the skills to do it. And we have cleaned up some major messes, and some that I've walked into that have gotten bad business coaching advice that I'm afraid aren't going to make it, because they've followed bad advice from somebody who didn't understand the complexities of the current environment.
Yeah. It's perspective, huge. Results. Again, it's crazy to me that we even have to mention the fact that your coach should have proven results before you consider hiring them. But we have to say it because you and I have both been privy to people that just simply say, hey, I saw this coach and I hired him. It's just like, did you vet him? Did you do anything? But we'll leave that there. The connection and the focus, I think, is so huge, because, again, if there's anything that you want from yourself, never mind a coach, from yourself, what would it mean just for you to simply be more connected to the work and more focused on the work? Okay, great. You probably sign up for that in a minute. Okay, so if you'd sign up for that so quickly, why wouldn't you want that from your coach too? Why wouldn't you want to ensure that on any given day, your coach is going to understand where you're coming from and understand what you need to hear? And secondly, be focused on your success. Like, again, like, it's the one thing I learned really quickly in the world of swimming, first and foremost, and I've carried it into this world now, is that if your coach, as a coach, if you want to succeed more than your athlete / client, that's probably not a good thing. Like, you want it badly for them. You really want it badly for them, but they still need to want it just as much, if not more. And I feel as though sometimes from the other side of that is that an athlete / in our case is now a client is when they're looking for a coach, is that sometimes they just simply don't consider, hey, is my coach as into this as I am? Do they want it as badly for me as I do? Because if I don't want it that badly, if I want it that badly, then I need to make sure that I'm going to find that right coach who's going to want it just as bad as I want it. They're going to wake up as excited about my growth and excited about my challenges as I am going to wake up and think about it every single day. And I love that part of the work I get to do now. I know you're the same in the work that you do. So that connection and that focus, I think, is just so important when it comes to just not just the coach themselves, but obviously as the client, as the competitor themselves, they want to make sure that they're incorporating that too, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think too, like another layer of that is your coach using the thing that they're coaching on themselves? Right. So we talk a lot about in our world, we eat our own dog food. And so what's crazy to me is the number of people in my space, in the business coaching and strategic planning space, who have businesses that don't use the tools that we're teaching clients. Now think about that for a minute.
Oh, yeah.
You are a business coach and strategic planning coach. And yet, if I ask you to show me your strategic plan, you don't have one. How is that possible? Right. So when we think about like the methodologies you teach and all the work that you do, I know you use them yourself daily and weekly, right? Maybe in a different sense, right? Sure. I don't have, like, for instance, for me, our team's small. I have clients with hundreds of employees. It's different than it is for me with kind of 10 of us, right? So from that standpoint, it's different. But that's the piece to me too, in terms of the integrity and the way in which you trust that coach. But absolutely, from a standpoint of being able to have that coach that wants it for you, and it's okay for you as a coach to allow your client to borrow some of what I talk about, my certainty at times, but it can't always be that. Because if you do want it more from the client because you need a paycheck, because you aren't financially stable enough to be a coach, and this is your way to make some fast money, well, that's a problem.
Exactly. It all comes down to this integrity. Again, it's lacking way too much in the coaching world, sadly. But I think as long as folks like you and I continue to talk about it, it should help. It should help, and it should have an impact.
And listen, I think some of the coaches. I'm sorry to interrupt. I think some of the coaches don't even know. And this is where you, as the client, have got to interview, because I think there's some well-intentioned people who want to do good work. They just don't know what they don't know, and they don't realize that. And this is where they need to go work with some smaller, simpler situations and build some case studies and build some testimonies and build some results. Steve, you and I both started at one level, and we've moved up and we've moved up and we've moved up, because that's how we built our life, and that's how we built our athletic ability and everything else in terms of how we operate. And so it's stacked on top of stacked on top of stacked on top of stacked, versus trying to go crush it with this big old contract, with some massive company that neither of us would have been prepared for when we started the game.
Yeah, it's so
Which
important.
Isn't sexy. It isn't fun. It's the coach having to drive those pilings in the swamp to build a bridge just as much as it is the client.
Yeah. And by the way, I had a genius idea from just the swag side of things for Exit Momentum, maybe Exit Momentum 2x4s. Have you thought about that at all? Or?
That is a fantastic idea.
I know you can keep that one. That one's yours.
I like it. I like it.
Listen, man, this has been a lot about the work you're doing today. We've learned a lot about your, the kind of the origin of your mindset as well. But, I just want to walk people through as well, just how you were able to just get clear on this being where you belonged, like how you were able to get to that point in life where it's like, listen, Exit Momentum, not only is now the right time for me to start it, but this is the reason why I'm the one to start it. Yeah. And I think that it's always such a powerful story, because entrepreneurship's not for everybody. Business ownership, it's not for everybody. But I think there's something about the almost liberating theme within your story. It seems as though as you've gone from each chapter in life, you just found more and more liberation in the work that you do. So I'd love for you just to kind of walk us through why it became what it became, and also just why you're the right person to be doing it.
Yeah, thank you for that question. So I never expected to be the single entrepreneur, owner, face of the business. I was always happy to be part of a team, which is pretty interesting, because my athletic career was always individual sports with a few relays kind of thing. But in any event, I just was and had made a really good life and made a lot of good decisions, but I was part of great teams throughout my career. But I was also picking up skills along the way with some great mentors, some great coaches, and achieving some real results for myself. And I'm happy to share the history of that. But bottom line is I got clear about that. And in the last role I was in, I was helping drive some results for a team. I got exposed to this work very specifically that we do now as CEO of this holding company. And once we decided, hey, we were living in California for a year during that period, we decided we'd come back to Louisiana. It was like, okay, what am I going to go do? And I had worked with investors for a long time as part of angel funded teams or Series A teams where we brought new technologies to market, scaled businesses, exited those businesses many times, sometimes got kicked in the face. We learned a lot from that just as importantly. But these were material deals. These were deals where, our investors were raising between $5 and $50 million. So this was not small potato stuff, but I had started in smaller business, kept moving up, and was gaining those skills over time. And so I sat not clear in the dark in an office I had downstairs in my house in California. And I just had this thought. And this is my connection to God. It's the way that I operate. It was just this thought that got just kind of descended and landed on my brain, which is, are you going to build it for someone else again?
Wow.
And I just sat with that thought for days, terrified, excited, confused, and just stayed with it. And I sat in the question. And that is an uncomfortable place to be. Sitting in the question about what you're going to do. Is it time to make this step? How hard is it going to be? What do you know? What's the impact to you personally? What's the impact to your life, your relationship, your marriage, your kids, all the things that go through that, because they all connect back to this ability to produce. And so that's when I decided it was it. So I went down some paths to get the right structure around me, the right support around me. So it wasn't just the Cullen idea. I went and found things, time-tested principles that I could incorporate into this. And we launched. And in the midst of that, it was just me originally. And it's certainly grown from there with, we got 5 other coaches on the team now, and we've, served over 100 companies. But for me, the founding of it was sitting in that question and asking, was that? And so when I looked at it, I had, 30 years of business history, experience, and success. I had a balance sheet that allowed me to do this work. So I didn't have to go chase clients. So unlike some of my peers where they got to go get somebody signed because if not, they can't pay the mortgage. That was not where I was. I could go for months or years without income. And I didn't want to burn those funds, but I had made decisions to do that. So that allowed me to take a different path and do this in a very methodical way in terms of the work that it, and be selective about who I worked with in the beginning. So I made sure I had the right kind of mindset coming in from a client standpoint with those first several clients so I could learn what I need to learn because I knew I would get better and more valuable over time.
There's 2 massive things here, man. And again, probably the first one more so than the second one, because if entrepreneurship isn't for you, then that's fine. But anybody who's even just thinking about career change, who's thinking about leveling up, whatever it is, that notion of not only taking the time to slow down and find that powerful question that's going to best serve you, but then to sit in the question and sit in it for what it sounds like days, maybe even weeks, like a long time.
Really, weeks and months, because as you well know, it's like it kept coming back. It kept going back.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. And again, I've been blessed that this podcast was in many ways the catalyst for that, for me asking that very same question. So thank God all the time just for that in my world to have had this catalyst in my life doing this. But sometimes we ask these questions like this, and if we can't find the answer right away, we almost let the question go and we just carry on and we go back on the hamster wheel of life, and 5 years go by and the same question comes back up and it's like, oh shoot, I didn't do anything about that question last time. Is now the right time for me to sit with it for a little bit? And I think that element of sitting in discomfort, a running theme throughout this entire 40 minutes, it comes right back. That element of patience as well is absolutely huge. But then something you mentioned there too, the second piece of this is, if you are looking to make this big commitment, this big change within a career, within life, whatever it might be, that notion of actually knowing who best to bring into it at first, that's what I heard there is, and that's so important. It's not one thing just to simply get started, but if you're bringing people into it, holy crap, get the right people.
Yeah.
Because those first couple of people are huge, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I was just so fortunate to have an amazing network of folks for me to start with that really, really helped. And I'm so grateful to those first 3 or 4 clients that were just part of this journey for me, because I was very open about where I was. It wasn't like, I got it all figured out. I was like, hey, I'm doing this thing. I think this is going to work. Here's the plan. You know what I'm saying? And just kind of got going that way. But I do want to come back to this thing about, because we're connecting the dots from the end back to the beginning.
Yep.
Sitting in the discomfort of that question, I promise you, I would much rather go run 50 miles, bike 100, whatever, than have to sit in that question. So you want to talk about discomfort?
Right.
Sit by yourself alone in the midst of a very, very intense, difficult question without a simple answer that may take days, weeks, months. And quite frankly, it was probably really 2 years before I had the answer. Now, we were making progress incrementally along the way for sure, but that question haunted me. It also drove me. It also liberated me. So there was a discomfort in the midst of that was there. And so for me, that was a critical thing. And I do think a lot of people who don't start are unwilling, and they can't sit in the discomfort long enough to deal with these kinds of questions. Right. Yeah. And I know you are a person who's done it, because I've watched you do it. I've seen you do it. And we've connected on that. But yes, the second piece of that is, once you are in that, being able to go make sure that you are attracting the right people for that period of time. Yeah. There are people that I play the game with now in terms of what we're helping them build, in terms of value and impact and number of employees and level of innovation. I was really smart and had a lot of business experience. But 5 years ago, when I founded Exit Momentum, that would have been, we'd have done okay, but it would not be what it is today. And I would not be near as surgical as I am now. And we're moving faster and we're getting results even faster than we ever did. But that's because I went through the process. And again, I didn't overinflate and jump on LinkedIn and declare myself the expert of all things. Right. I said, hey, I'm doing this thing. And my first client said, I don't even know what you're doing. I just know you got some smarts. It would help us. And we feel we trust you. So whatever you're doing, we're in. And I'm like, Chris, I don't even have the offer. He's like, all right, when you figure that out, just call us. I'm like, beautiful. So another great, gift, certainly a divine gift. And Chris and Amy Breen coming in when I was first getting started.
Man, it's so, I love that this part of the interview has come out, because you've been part of that for me, man. Like, you've been one of those people for me in the first 2 years of my business too. And quite frankly, it wasn't until maybe only 5 or 6 months ago that I felt some of those difficult questions I first asked myself was starting to really get clear answers on. And lo and behold, that was right around the 2 year mark. It's just kind of what it is, folks. Like, if you want to see significant lasting change and feel that impact in terms of serving your potential, that optimal self that we talk about episode after episode on the show, at some point, you got to ask the hard questions. You got to sit in the question, and you got to take some real time phases of discomfort to get to that element of clarity that can best serve you and your growth over time. I mean, brother, we couldn't have scripted a better way to sort of go through this whole episode, and I knew it was going to be an absolute power episode, and it's completely delivered on that. And for anybody that ever wants to become a friend of mine, you get an extra 10 minutes on my show when you become a friend of mine. So that's what Cullen gets. Cullen got an extra 10 minutes today, and you all got it too as a big bonus. But listen, brother, we could do this again, and I'm sure we will at some point down the road. But for now, we're gonna leave it there, and I'm just gonna give you the floor just to leave us with that killer insight on the way out. But more importantly, tell us where we can learn more about you, Exit Momentum, etc.
Yeah, and I want to say this, and I'm not the old guy who thinks young people are this and that. This last thing that Steve just covered as it relates to your ability to sit in the discomfort. I think you've been done a disservice both in school and to some degree in sports and everything else. You're not bad or wrong. The container for you to have this kind of awareness has not been there. So if you're a little bit earlier in your career, again, I want you to really lean into the difficult opportunities that show up for yourself in terms of learning and growth and everything else, because it is a skill you build over time. And what we're seeing for our 20-something-year-olds, our 30-something-year-olds who didn't have that as much of their background, them doing this work is catapulting their career. So it's just one of those things that struck me in terms of what's possible. And so you can't be a victim to it. You're now aware of it, but you've got to put yourself in that spot. So I just want to leave that message, because there's a lot of younger people trying to figure this out in a very confusing time, because everything is instant gratification in the way that you've grown up and operated in some new ways. You don't know about really boring long car drives and stuff like that. You always have a mobile device. So in any event, so as far as getting to know us and where we're from, so exitmomentum.com is the website. Happy to have you go there and check out some of the materials that we have to help help you think through business opportunities as a business leader or business owner. If you are interested in talking more, we absolutely willing to get on a call and talk you through what we do. One of our core values is to deliver value with every interaction. So I promise you, this will not be a sales call. It will be a place to help you see things differently and help you take some action. And if that turns into a client relationship, fantastic. We are not low on client opportunity. So we're not going to chase you down. But if you want to get to know us more and connect with the team, please reach out.
All right, buddy. Well, listen, that was anything and everything that it could possibly have been for 45 minutes plus. And man, I just appreciate you. I appreciate how much you've done in my world over the last couple of years. And I'm sure all of that impact will not be slowing down anytime soon. So I just appreciate everything you do for me and appreciate what you brought to us today, brother. So thanks for the time.
You're welcome. Thank you, bud.
And my thanks again to Cullen for joining us on the show, being so generous with his time, providing so many insights. But as you leave here today, I want to provide this major takeaway, in my opinion, which is that of starting to create some extended periods of commitment within your world. Cullen alluded to how maybe this generation of today has been kind of hard done by in some of the things they've not been exposed to. And I'm going to go one further than that as well and just say that, hey, listen, if for whatever reason you've gotten to whatever point you are in life and you feel as though you've never been exposed to this sort of 12 to 24 month process of where you've committed to something and you've found ways to remain committed to it and gone through all the ups and downs that come with it and come out the other end and seen some sort of result, if you've never been experienced to that, then I really encourage you to start saying, what in my world right now can I say, listen, I'm going to give myself a year or two of real estate right here to really dive in and give this a go. It could be something as simple as just an exercise plan or taking on that lofty goal that you've always thought about and been interested about doing, but for whatever reason, you've never committed to it. Figure out who in your world can help create this container, as Cullen put it, to where you can just remain committed to something for as little as 12 months, but hopefully for at least a couple of years, and see a return on the investment. Cullen and I have gotten to places in life now where we've had to put this extended period of commitment into creating what we've created for ourselves. And as you heard there, and I've alluded to numerous times, we still don't have it all figured out and we're still learning as we go, but we've remained in our respective containers for long enough to see a return and to learn enough in terms of what it is we can actually get from it. So a little bit of a longer takeaway than I typically would provide, but hey, this is already an extended episode, so what the heck is another minute or two to adding further impact around some of this awesome insight courtesy of Cullen on this episode. But hey, listen, if you're new to Career Competitor, I strongly encourage you to subscribe, because this kind of content that you've received here today, it's one of numerous examples of what powerful insight looks like from our guests. So make sure you're subscribing. Make sure you're taking the time to also click that 5th star podcast so that we can continue to get the word out around this show. And finally, of course, share this show with somebody in your world that you know it could be of service to. Frankly, it's just not fair that you wouldn't share this with somebody, because it's such powerful insight. So don't be selfish, be nice, be generous, be selfless, and go ahead and share this episode with someone in your world today. Best of luck with anything and everything you've got going on in your world, and I look forward to doing this again with you very soon. Bye for now.